Hello, and welcome back to Today English Podcast. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you truly love Jesus, like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep watching the video believing in Jesus, you will learn something good, and comment to let us know what you are watching. Your support truly helps this channel grow. Alright, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. Gentle story about listening, real listening, the kind of listening that helps you understand complex English articles without fear, without stress, and without feeling small. And our story begins on a quiet morning. The kind of morning where the world feels soft and calm, where the light comes through the window slowly, and you sit with a cup of tea or coffee, holding your phone or sitting near your computer, ready to listen, but inside you feel something heavy. Because every time you see a long English article, especially a complex one, your heart feels tight, your mind feels busy, and you think, this is too hard for me. And I want you to know, right now, that this feeling is very normal, and you are not alone, because many learners reach this point. A point where simple English feels easy, daily conversation feels okay, but long articles, news stories, opinion pieces, or deep explanations feel like a wall, tall and cold, and this story is about how to walk through that wall. Not by breaking it, not by fighting it, but by understanding it, step by step, and our main character in this story is someone like you. Maybe it is you. Someone who wants to understand English deeply, not just words, but meaning, emotion, and flow. And on this morning, this person opens a complex article, maybe about culture, science, society, or life, and at first, the words look friendly, but after a few lines, the sentences grow longer, ideas start to connect, and suddenly the reader feels lost. And this is the challenge. This is the moment where many people stop, close the article, and say, I am not ready. But today, we do not stop here, because this is where listening becomes powerful. And you see, complex articles are not only about hard words, they're about ideas that move slowly, ideas that build on each other, like a long road, and when you try to read them fast or listen to them like a race, you miss the road. But when you slow down, when you listen like you are listening to a friend telling a deep story, everything changes. And this is the first realization in our journey, that understanding complex English is not about speed, it is about patience, and our character decides to try something new instead of reading fast. They listen, slowly, to the article, maybe as audio, maybe read aloud, and at first it feels strange, because the voice is slow and the sentences are long, but something interesting happens. The mind begins to relax, and when the mind relaxes, it opens, and when it opens, ideas can enter, and as the voice continues, the listener starts to hear patterns, not just words, but how ideas connect, how one sentence prepares the next, how the writer gently leads the reader from one thought to another. And this is where exploration begins, because now listening is not just about understanding every word, it is about understanding the direction of the story. And our character learns an important lesson here. You do not need to understand everything to understand something, and this lesson is small but powerful, because many learners believe they must catch every word, every detail. But real listening, advanced listening, is about catching the main idea, the feeling, the movement of thought. And as the article continues, our character notices something else. The writer repeats ideas in different ways, not with the same words, but with the same meaning. And this repetition is not boring, it is helpful. It is like someone explaining something important slowly, carefully, and this is when confidence starts to grow, very quietly, like a small light turning on in a dark room, and the listener thinks, I understand this part, and then later, I understand this too. And even when some parts are still unclear, fear is no longer in control. Curiosity is, and curiosity is the key to understanding complex articles, because curiosity asks questions, gentle questions, like, why is the writer saying this now? Or, how does this idea connect to the last one? And these questions do not need answers right away. They simply guide your listening, and now the transformation begins slowly, because our character is no longer listening like a student taking a test, but like a human listening to another human share thoughts. And this is very important because articles are written by people, real people with feelings, opinions, and stories inside their words. And when you listen with this idea, the article becomes alive, and as time passes, the listener notices they can listen longer without feeling tired. And this is another realization, that listening stamina, the ability to listen for a long time, grows naturally when fear disappears. And now, at this point in the story, our character finishes the article, maybe not understanding everything perfectly, but understanding enough to feel proud, to feel calm, to feel ready for the next one. And in this quiet moment after listening, there is reflection, a soft reflection, where the listener thinks about what changed, and what changed was not the article, not the English language, but the approach, the mindset, the way of listening. And the takeaway from this first part of our journey is simple and clear. To understand complex English articles, you must listen like a storyteller, not like a machine. You must allow ideas to flow, allow confusion to exist for a moment, and trust that meaning will come. And as we move forward in this long story together, remember this feeling, this calm confidence, because in the next section, we will go deeper into how ideas hide inside long sentences and how your ears can learn to find them naturally, gently, and with joy. We move a little deeper now into a place that many English learners fear the most, the long sentence, the kind of sentence that seems to never end, the kind that stretches across the page or flows through the audio like a river with many turns. And our character, the listener, meets this challenge again, this time with a new article, maybe from a newspaper, a magazine, or a serious blog, and at first glance, everything feels familiar, but then the long sentences arrive, full of commas, connecting words and ideas that seem to sit on top of each other, and this is where many people feel lost. The sentence listens again, slowly, and this time something different happens, because now the listener is not trying to understand everything at once, but is learning to listen in pieces, and this is the context we need to understand. That long sentences are not enemies. They are simply many short ideas holding hands, walking together, and once you see this, once you hear this, fear becomes smaller and curiosity grows, and our listener begins to notice how writers build long sentences. They start with a main idea, something strong and clear, and then they add small details, explanations, examples, or reasons, and these additions are like side roads that always come back to the main road, and this is the challenge. Learning to hear the main road while walking through the side roads, and this takes practice, gentle practice, and our character begins by listening for signals, simple words like because, although, while, which, and that, words that tell the listener, now I am adding something. And this is an important realization, because these words are not difficult, they are familiar, but their power is hidden, and once the listener starts to notice them, long sentences become maps instead of walls. And this is where exploration deepens, because now listening becomes active, not stressful, but awake, and the listener plays a small game in the mind, a friendly game, asking, what is the main idea here, and is this part explaining or adding? And slowly, the answers appear, not perfectly, not every time, but often enough to build trust, trust in the ears, trust in the mind, And as the article continues, the listener hears another long sentence, and instead of panic, there is patience, and patience is powerful because it allows time for meaning to arrive, and when meaning arrives, even slowly, it stays longer, and now comes a quiet moment of realization that long sentences are actually kind. They are trying to be clear, trying to show how ideas connect, trying to guide the reader gently, and this changes everything because now the listener feels invited, not attacked, and as this feeling grows, transformation begins again, this time deeper. Because the listener notices they can listen without translating every word. They can feel the sentence, the rhythm, the pauses, the rise and fall of the voice, and this rhythm carries meaning too, and this is very important for advanced listening. Because real understanding is not only in words, but in sound, in flow, in emotion, and as our character finishes this second article, there is a sense of progress, not loud, not dramatic, but real, and in the reflection that follows, the listener understands something new. That complex English is not faster or smarter English. It is simply more connected English, and connections take time to hear, and the takeaway of this section is gentle and clear. When you listen to long sentences, do not rush, do not fight. Listen for the main idea. Follow the small connecting words, and let the sentence carry you, like water carries a leaf, and in the next section of our journey, we will move even deeper into the world of ideas themselves, how writers hide opinions, emotions, and messages inside complex articles, and how your listening can learn to feel them, not just understand them. And so our story continues, slowly, calmly, and with growing confidence. Deeper place, a place where English is no longer just information, but meaning, feeling, and intention, and this is where many complex articles truly live, not on the surface, not in clear facts alone, but inside hidden ideas, gentle opinions, and soft emotions that are not always said directly. And our listener, our main character, is ready now, even if they do not know it yet, ready to listen in a new way, a deeper way, and the hook of this section begins with a simple moment. The listener finishes an article and thinks, I understand the words, but I feel like there is something more, and this feeling is important because it means your listening has grown. It means you are no longer only hearing language, you are sensing meaning, and this is the doorway to advanced listening. And to understand this, we need context. Because writers of complex articles often do not speak loudly, they do not shout their opinions. Instead, they suggest, they guide, they lead the reader slowly, like someone pointing to the moon instead of touching it, and this is challenging for learners because in many languages, ideas are said clearly and directly, but in English, especially in serious writing, ideas often hide behind examples, stories, and careful language. And our listener meets this challenge when listening to an article about modern life, maybe about technology, society, or work, and the writer talks about daily habits, small changes, simple stories, and at first it feels like nothing special, but slowly a feeling appears, a sense that the writer is saying something bigger, something important, without saying it clearly, and this is where exploration begins, because now listening becomes emotional, not emotional like sadness or happiness, but emotional like awareness, and our listener starts to ask new questions. Gentle questions, not what does this word mean, but why is the writer telling me this story, and what do they want me to think or feel? And these questions open the mind in a new way, and as the article continues, the listener hears words like often, tends to, seems to, and these words are soft, careful words, words that do not shout, but suggest, and this is a key realization, because these words tell us that the writer is sharing an opinion, not a fact, and once you hear this, the article changes shape. It becomes a conversation, not a lecture, and our listener begins to feel the writer's voice, calm, thoughtful, sometimes worried, sometimes hopeful, and this feeling is not in the dictionary, it is in the tone, the rhythm, the choice of examples, and now transformation begins again, because the listener is no longer afraid of not understanding everything. Instead, they are comfortable sitting with uncertainty, letting ideas stay unclear for a moment. And this is powerful because complex ideas need space, and as the article moves toward its ending, the listener notices something beautiful. The writer returns to the beginning, to the first idea, the first story, but now it feels different, deeper, richer, and this is another important realization, that complex articles are often circles, not straight lines. They bring you back to where you started, but with new understanding, and when the article ends, there is a quiet moment, a pause, and the listener reflects, thinking, I did not understand every sentence, but I understand the message, and this feeling is success. Takeaway from this section is simple but deep. To understand complex English articles, you must listen for what is not said directly, feel the tone, notice the soft opinion words, and trust your emotional understanding. And as our long story continues, in the next section, we will talk about time, about listening for a long time without losing focus, and how to stay calm and present with English for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even an hour, without fear or fatigue. And so we continue step by step, deeper into confident, natural English listening. And now our journey reaches a place that many learners dream of but feel is very far away, the ability to listen to English for a long time, calmly, without stress, without the strong need to stop, rewind, or give up. And our story begins with a familiar situation. Our listener starts a long article or a long audio, maybe 30 minutes, maybe more, and at first everything feels fine, but after 10 minutes, the mind begins to wander, thoughts appear, focus becomes soft, and suddenly the listener realizes they are listening, but not really hearing, and this is the hook of this section, this quiet moment of loss, and instead of feeling bad, our character decides to stay kind to themselves, because this is not failure, this is part of learning. And to understand this, we need context, because the human mind is not designed to focus strongly for a long time without training, and listening in a second language uses even more energy. So feeling tired is natural, and our listener learns an important idea here, that long listening is not about force, it is about rhythm, about learning how to move with the sound instead of pushing against it, and this is the challenge. Staying present with English for a long time. And our character begins to explore small changes, gentle changes, like adjusting posture, breathing slowly, allowing the voice to wash over the mind, and something interesting happens. When the body relaxes, the mind follows, and listening becomes softer, easier, and now comes a realization that you do not need to understand every part of a long article to stay focused. You only need to stay connected to the voice, to the flow, to the feeling, and our listener starts to listen like they listen to music. Not trying to catch every note, but enjoying the melody. And this is a powerful transformation, because now English is no longer a task, it is an experience, and as the article continues, the listener notices moments of clarity, moments where understanding becomes sharp and bright, and moments where understanding fades, and instead of fighting these changes, the listener accepts them, knowing that focus moves like waves, and this acceptance keeps the mind calm, and calm is the key to long listening. And as time passes, something wonderful happens. The listener reaches the end of the article, not exhausted, not stressed, but quietly satisfied, and in the reflection that follows, the listener understands that long listening is a skill that grows slowly, like strength, like balance, and the takeaway from this section is clear and gentle. To listen for a long time, relax your body, trust the rhythm, stay with the sound, and allow understanding to come and go. And in the next section, the final part of our journey, we will talk about transformation, about how all these small changes come together, and how listening to complex English articles can become a natural, enjoyable part of your life, not a challenge, not a fear, but a quiet joy. And so we move forward, calm journey together, a place of reflection, quiet confidence, and gentle change, and our story opens with a moment that feels simple, but is very important. Our listener starts a new complex English article, maybe one they once avoided, maybe one they saved for later, and as the voice begins, something feels different, not loud, not dramatic, but different in a deep way, because the body is relaxed, the mind is open, and the heart is not afraid. And this is the hook of our final section, this quiet realization that change has already happened. And to understand this moment fully, we look back at the path our listener has walked, from fear to patience, from confusion to curiosity, from short listening to long, calm presence. And now the challenge is no longer understanding English, but trusting yourself as a listener. And this can feel strange, because many learners are used to feeling not ready, and now, suddenly, readiness is here, soft but real. And our listener explores this feeling, listening to the article without tension, without the need to translate, without the need to control every sentence, and the words arrive, the ideas flow, and even when some parts are unclear, they do not stop the journey. And this is a powerful realization, that understanding is not broken by not understanding everything. It is supported by patience and trust. And as the article continues, the listener notices how all the skills come together naturally, hearing long sentences without fear, sensing hidden ideas, staying focused for a long time, and feeling the writer's voice like a human presence. And this is the transformation. The listener is no longer a learner fighting English, but a listener sharing space with English. And this changes the relationship completely, because now English is not an exam, not a wall, not a problem to solve, but a companion, a way to connect with thoughts, stories, and people from around the world. And as the article reaches its end, the listener does not rush away. There's a pause, a gentle pause, and in this reflection, the listener understands something very important, that fluency is not speed, it is comfort. It is the ability to stay, to listen, to feel at home inside the language. And this feeling did not come from studying harder, but from listening better, listening slower, kinder, deeper. And now comes the final takeaway of our long story, a takeaway you can carry with you every day. You do not need to be perfect to be advanced. You do not need to understand everything to understand enough. And you do not need to rush to become fluent, because fluency grows naturally when you listen with patience, curiosity, and trust. And as we close this episode of Today English Podcast, remember this image, you sitting calmly, listening to English, understanding more than you think, growing more than you notice, and becoming, slowly and surely, the listener you always wanted to be. And this is not the end, it is the beginning, because every article you listen to from now on is not a test, but a story, and you are ready to hear it. Headphone sparkles.